fixing.
Sorry about that. Excuse me.
All right, I gave my spiel and it doesn't look like there's any questions.
Okay.
Well, thanks for
I've got a,
Yep.
sorry, I've got a question. Hi, I'm John Shirless. Thanks for your summary and presentation and what you're up to. I'm wondering, there's a freshwater location, which is Uncle Seth's Pond, which is east of Lambert's, the upper end of Lambert's Cove Road in West Tisbury. The road that goes by there, there's a long hill heading up island, and it's a tremendous amount of rainwater comes off of that, or meltwater as well. And the pond is just a few, depends on the year, of course. It can be just a couple of yards offshore. And I'm wondering if that's something that might be looked into.
Yeah, I think so. You know, I like to chase the problem, even though we're supposed to be centering things around Lagoon Pond. We often get distracted. These methods can be used anywhere. You know, the focus is it's a watershed grant, so we're supposed to be focusing on a specific watershed, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't take a look. And whose jurisdiction would that be under? Is that West Tisbury? Okay,
It's for the town of West Tisbury.
got it. Yeah, I would be happy to visit that location.
And these are all being cast on island.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're, to the extent that we can, we're trying to take advantage of the on-island networks. We identified one outfall that goes to Tajmu, east from East Spring Street, so the top of the hill there in Tisbury, and that has been a real interest of mine because that outfall location goes right into Tajmu, and it's a pretty large drainage area. And if you look at the outfall, it's undercutting itself. So there's a large diameter, probably 18-inch corrugated metal pipe, and it's just hanging out probably 15 feet from the slope. So typically when we put in these, it's flush with the slope, but over time, that velocity is so high, the velocity of the water is so high, it's undercutting itself. So it's hanging now. And it just gives you an idea of the massive amount of sediment that's mobilized, not to mention everything that's collected in, you know, in the drainage. So, you know, that's something we're looking into. We discovered there were 12 first flush basins, which kind of could potentially help treat some of that runoff that were installed back in the 90s. But of course, you know, we're looking forward to the spring popping the covers and assessing the functionality of that infrastructure, because it probably hasn't been looked at since it was installed. So, you know, that'll be a pretty big improvement if we can rehabilitate that infrastructure. It's already in the ground, and so those are the kinds of things that we're really trying to awaken the need for better stormwater management. So yeah, feel free to send that location around, and I will you know, make a point to do a site visit.
Hi, can I just bring up, there's other locations around the lagoon that I think is Danielle. I'm the shellfish constable in Vineyard Haven. Thank you for looking into that storm pipe in Tashmu, but also there are some other locations around the lagoon that have, like, you know, drawn concern, like down at the, like off of past, I call it Rainier's. It's right before Hines Point. It's like a little town landing. The town used to have permits to fill that area with sand, but because, like, you know, when it rains, it just creates this gully. It looks like the Grand Canyon down there at times. And there's also one that's further up off of Park. It's actually Kronig Ave. It's like, you know, it's paved down to the water, well, almost. And then it's like this little other access point where a lot of stormwater gets into the pond. So those are two other areas that I know of on the Tisbury side that the town has some access to. So I didn't know if you looked into those areas as well.
Yeah, well, I think the goal and objective, since, I mean, this is some modest funding, you know, so it's not going to solve everything, but what we're hoping to do is develop sort of these demonstrations that could be replicable. So Grove Ave is an example of an end of road. And I know Sherry's taken me to a bunch of other locations all around Lagoon Pond. There's so many of these end of road areas where the roadway just ends right at the beach. And there's no real associated drainage. The road actually works as a conveyance and then, you know, just blasts out these gullies into the lagoon. So as much as we can slow that down, give it a place, give the water a place to go and release it kind of slowly, that's what we're after. So I'm really hoping that between Grove Ave, which will be a little bit more sophisticated because the drainage area is so big, and I'll get the name of the other location. Hudson Ave. So that's another end of road. Hudson Ave is a lot simpler because the road itself is not as steep and the drainage area is not as great. It's probably about an acre of drainage, so we can get away with a relatively small system. So what we're going to do there is just build a turnout where all the runoff can enter and then infiltrate back into the ground. They'll have some engineered soil, so it'll filter, and then we'll just slowly release this, hopefully in a stable way, so that it doesn't cause that type of gullying or type of erosion. So I really hope that between these two projects, and what we potentially could do is once we're finished, we could have like a tour. And that way, you know, we start building a database of other locations where this could be done as well. And then through the process, hopefully we'll be working with local contractors, the local precasters. So we'll have all these on-island solutions. So the idea is to use a little bit of this funding to develop a market for future implementation efforts.
I see Sherry's hand up.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sherry Countryman. I'm president of the Lagoon Pond Association. And yeah, thank you so much for this. I was not really aware of this. And so a couple of things, like I actually have like a million questions, but a couple of things is, one, I guess, is just, is this kind of in its infancy? How long have you been working on this? The second question I have is, my understanding is that over all along Beach Road over there, there are drainage pipes that go into the harbor from the lagoon, and a lot of those are all stopped up and everything. And have people looked at that? And, you know, we've always had concerns if you open those up, is it just inviting stuff from the harbor into the West Arm, making it worse? And then the third question that I have is, you know, how can the Lagoon Pond Association and its members help? You know, if you're not getting progress from the DOT, you know, is there something that we can do to try to spearhead them to try to get more involved or what have you? So a lot of questions, but
Yeah, all good questions. Yeah, so this has just begun, even though it seems, you know, the first study was completed in 2020. And that was a EPA funded project, and there was a bunch of modeling that was done for the whole Tisbury area, and it produced this handful of implementation efforts that were recommended. Then we got this grant to actually implement some of those methods, and that really, we're on year 2 here, but progress is relatively slow. We've only installed one system working with the town. So, you know, the idea is we're building those relationships now to get things in the ground, but certainly looking into the future, we really need support, and we need, you know, what the advocates can do is really demand that, the towns really do something to address these known issues. This is really kind of, this kind of civil infrastructure, and certainly looking forward into the uncertainty of climate change. I always say you don't want the easy stuff like drainage. Drainage, relatively speaking, is very easy to manage and to deal with. You don't want that crashing into, the uncertainty and the complex impacts from something like climate change, which definitely is not going to be easy.
Yeah.
I think this is stuff that I think can evolve over time. So it's a good opportunity to speak with you, and we know each other's out there, and possibly once we get one or two examples, let's start to generate outreach and education about these, and then we can start to build these advocacy channels such that other towns can begin to deal with this. And I think there'll be a lot of funds available, and that's the other thing. You want to take advantage of the funds while they're available to do the work that we know needs to happen.
Yeah.
as-
Yeah, I was gonna say, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think the thing is that the Lagoon Pond Association, what we talk about a lot is the fact that, the main problem here is, are the nutrients from septic systems. And both Tisbury and Oak Bluffs are working on their CWMPs and watershed permits and all that other stuff. And the problem with all of that is that it's going to take a really long time. And at least we don't feel like there's a long time for the Lagoon Pond. And so we need to at least start to focus on, while that stuff is going on and we're advocating for them to go quicker on that type of thing, we need to focus on some of the other things, some of the other lower hanging fruit that we can, maybe they don't make as huge a difference, but they make a difference. And we can be working on those in the meantime. So it's really important, and we can talk about this later, but I'd love you to come and talk to the LPA at some point.
Sure.
Okay, great.
So Jamie, what we'll have is kind of like a recipe, or like, we'll know what permits we need. We'll know what kind of system we need. We'll kind of have our island operators who can install it. It'll just be like, okay, now we've got to get the money. We've got everything.
That's the hope. I mean, I think that's the long-term plan, right? You have on-island solutions, and you have people that can implement it. And I see that as a huge success of this project, which is 5 years. So we're in our second year. So we have 3 more years. And by the end of this, I would count as a successful project. We have a recipe book that has multiple examples of things that you can do. You have sources for materials to complete those implementation efforts, and you have the beginning of a trained workforce, whether it's a private contractor or even towns that can do some of this on their own, to carry this forward. Because the small amount of money is not going to solve all the problems, and I could work for the next 20 years and not even come close to solving all the problems. But I think it'll at least be a starting point.
And they should be like manageable bites, so that an entity like Lagoon Pond Association, they could say, okay, this is what we want to do, and it wouldn't be that expensive, or they could get grants for it too, right?
Right. Like, this location is kind of intriguing, right? The end of road location that was just brought up. And what do you do there? That the town's been dumping sand. It's a big chasm is formed, and everybody just throws up their hands, and I guess you just pretend it's not there. But now we'll have potentially some solutions that can help address some of those issues, and not just in one location, but in all those locations where that same sort of scenario exists.
John, I see your hand.
Thank you. I guess a question more for Sherry and Jamie, is it therefore likely or possible that the commission would build a multi-layer map and database of these locations. And then if everyone could look at those, we could comment, make suggestions with respect to that document, with respect to mapping out the other locations and the issues.
We definitely could do that. Chris with the GIS could definitely mark it. Each town could give us some suggestions, you know. I know some of them, but I know I don't know them all. So, yeah, that would be a great idea.
That would be helpful too, because when grants become available, usually they want more developed projects. And so with this type of toolbox that we're talking about, you have a location. It's pretty easy to develop like the drainage area from the mapping, and you get Mass has good GIS mapping. And so, you know, with these types of design approaches, you know, like, so I can throw together a concept design pretty quickly. And that is typically what funders want. You know, they want to know your location, they want to know what type of management practice you're going to put in, and then they want estimates for what that's going to do for the watershed. And so we have automated just about all of that. So if we have a database of locations, we could, you know, create these sort of off-the-shelf concept designs that could just float right into a grant proposal.
Sorry, I can't see if anybody has their hand up from where I'm sitting, so I'm just gonna jump in.
Mhm.
But I know Fish and Wildlife money, if that's a boat launch, like at the end of the street that Danielle was talking about, wouldn't Fish and Wildlife money be available for that? Because have you ever used them?
I haven't.
If it's a boat launch, it might be, that might be an avenue, but we could look at that some more.
So just so people know,
sorry,
maybe, let me just clarify something. This is a new system here, but you know, when people speak, the whole screen gets filled up and you can't see everybody. But I've noticed that if you put your hand up with the reaction button, you come right up to, you're the first person that you can see. So if everybody uses the reaction button versus their own hand, they can be seen by the person who's calling on people. So just so you know. So who's speaking? Danielle, is that you?
Hi, guys. Sorry, I was on a different screen. I'm on my cell phone, so it's a little different. And yeah, anyway, so whatever. Yeah, that's not a boat launch per se. It might have been used as one years ago, but we can always look into that. There is fishing access down there, but it's not, I don't know if it's recognized by the state or the town as such currently. Yeah, that's just been like a hot button issue for me, but I can look into that. But I think what you guys are doing and having like your recipe book and mapping and all that good stuff it would be super beneficial. Thank you.
I just wanted to jump in and say that I don't think in the past, before this flooding became an issue, people just didn't think about the water going into the ponds and going into freshwater bodies. They thought that was what it was supposed to do. And they haven't, you know, regarded what's in that water and how we need to, that's not where it's supposed to go. It's got to be treated somehow. So I think this is a new awakening for a lot of people.
Yeah, and just the development itself and kind of the urbanization of the drainage area takes away a lot of the natural ability to process and treat that water. So, you know, before you'd have the storage in all kinds of little pockets and water going through vegetated areas, and now everything is paved and piped, delivered, and it, you know, it doesn't go through the natural treatment that it once did. And a lot of what we try to do is restore that to the extent that we can, restore little pockets for where water can be stored, go back into the ground, and slowly make it to the lagoon or to the creek or, you know, to the ocean through the soils where it gets natural treatment.
I don't know if people remember, but I do because it's right at the end of my street. My end of my street, Farm Neck, not Farm Neck Road, Tradewinds Road comes out onto County Road in Oak Bluffs, right in front of Johnny Light's junkyard. Just imagine what the crap is in. Anyway, there used to be wicked flooding there every time it rained. I mean, it was like ridiculous. You couldn't almost drive through it. And they hired a firm, and it took a while, but they did it right. And that problem is gone. Hopefully that water is being properly treated, because it's not only is it runoff from the road. Well, I guess most of the runoff came from Johnny Light's, came pouring down his driveway. This is, I don't know if you're familiar with Johnny Light's, it's a junkyard, automobile junkyard. And I can't even imagine the stuff that pours down that driveway every time it rains. But now it's at least going into some kind of treatment chamber at the end of his driveway. I don't see anybody else's hands. Anybody else got any thoughts? It could be a great idea to map out these areas and chip away at them. We're just going to get more rain, they say. Have you noticed?
Yeah, you guys missed the snow.
Yeah, I was thinking about
Isn't
that.
it?
What's probably the only place on the whole East Coast that's not getting snow right now? Caribbean of the East Coast. That's
The
us.
Caribbean of the East.
I can honestly say I did not miss the snow. It's right outside my window as we speak.
Snowing outside your window?
Hmm?
Oh, are you not on the island?
No, I'm out in Hatfield.
Oh,
I'm working remotely.
Aha. So how much snow have you gotten there?
Not that much, only about maybe 2-3 inches, but it's ice. It basically turned to hard
Yeah.
packed ice.
That's what I heard. The driving's terrible. I see Bill Vino's hand up.
Both of them. Yeah, I'm wondering if I met with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee the other night, and we were talking about some of the flooding that
Yeah.
comes onto the paths. I didn't know if this grant could maybe funnel some monies towards those areas that could have some stormwater retention or diversion or whatever, that are fairly small solutions, but could expand public awareness of what can be done by that. And certainly they have some sort of impact on water quality in general, but that's probably not the main target, or maybe there's two main targets. But just thought I'd raise that question, if that's something that might fall within the purview of the grant or not.
Yeah, I would think so. And I completely agree. I mean, on the one hand, you really want like strategic targets, right? To remove the largest or the most contribution of the, largest pollutant load or whatever. But an alternative is really, we need to build awareness. So if there could be small, simple things that we could do in high profile areas and develop signs around them. I mean, from my perspective, those are pretty easy to implement, and that signage is in and of itself, a best management practice, because we're building awareness. So to me, it fits right along with this type of approach. And it's not just, we're going to go and address the biggest problem. We really have to raise awareness as well.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of very high visibility areas that could have a great public awareness component to it.
Do you know where this is? That it's along the bike path?
There's many areas.
Okay.
along
Oh, it's just after the little bridge is the one that's been a problem. There's also one, but just before or just after, depending on which way you're going, the big bridge, it's in the road. It's right near that counter that the MVC installed. And that can be so big that if you were riding your bike by it, you would get splashed by the cars.
Yeah, I think it's really a good idea. This is what I always say on the LPA too. Let's get some low hanging fruit so that we get some momentum and people see tangible progress, even if it's small stuff, because that gets people to get kind of jazzed up about it and become aware and want to participate more. So yeah, I think anything you can do in that regard is good. And again, I just want to reiterate, we're going to be more than happy to partner with you, help you. We have people that are writing grants for us now. We have a lot of good stuff going on. So would welcome any sort of partnership.
Great. Bill, this is a little off topic, but I brought it up the other night at the bike meeting. This morning on my bike ride in the rain, I noticed that somebody drove through that guardrail. It's such a lovely guardrail by Farm Pond and ended up in the marsh in Farm Pond. It had already been cleaned up, but somebody had crashed into the marsh in Farm Pond.
Oh, I think I saw online that there was a roller accident last night.
Oh, maybe
I
that's
wonder-
it.
I wonder if that was it.
Yeah, it might have been it. John, I see your hand again.
Thanks. Just thinking about what everyone said and the idea of building a database and a map, and then about how to do that. And so one idea might be to contact the usual suspects with respect to the different entities in the towns, the people that deal with roads, boards of health, natural resource people, also NGOs and others to see what people would come up with right now off the tops of their heads with respect to sites on the island that are of interest. Also with respect to existing but possibly cryptic infrastructure. For example, I thought I was reasonably tuned into fresh water, but I remember probably 15 years ago, the late John Alley enlightening me about the culvert under Lambert's Cove Road that is responsible for maintaining the level of Uncle Seth's Pond lower than Lambert's Cove Road, and it puts the excess, as it were, relatively speaking, into the land that was Captain Benson's house, the Madowskis, which explains why it's often wet in there. So there may be cases that many people involved aren't aware of old infrastructure that merits attention.
Sounds like we need to put a newspaper article together, just highlighting what Jamie does and saying that the commission would like to put together this database, and then we could kind of, Bill, we could take it to the selectmen's meetings, you think? The suggestion?
Who's asking? What? You're muted.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your question, Sherry.
John was mentioning, areas that we might not know about, and I said, maybe we could put together, now that we have a communications person, we could put together a newspaper article highlighting what the work that Jamie's doing, and that we're going to put together a database of areas that need the stormwater remediation, and we could put that in the paper, and then we could take the suggestion to the selectmen, because a staff member goes to most of the select board meetings, so we could just put it on there, just saying, could you just work on giving us a list?
Yeah, but I agree with John, though. I think the DPWs or highway superintendents, the Concoms, I think we'd check with them first, because I'm sure they're aware of most of the places.
Okay.
And then maybe go out, to the public, say, here's a list that's been compiled thus far. Are there other areas? Because otherwise I think we'll get everyone saying the same thing, basically, are the obvious ones. So I think we could maybe get more public comment that would be would be contributing more to the known ones.
Okay, yeah. Hopefully they'll respond to the newspaper articles and. Yeah,
It's a really good approach though, because one of the first things that we did in this first permit, or in this first grant, I'm sorry, was do a bunch of modeling, right? And identify like the areas that are most prone to flooding. But I really like the idea of this is a kind of experiential model, right? It's not like this model's populating where all the spots are that need to be addressed. It's people are populating it with areas that are either hazardous, have caused problems in the past, or are just a nuisance. And that's the type of stuff that when you can fix that, people understand the benefits, right? Almost immediately, because it improves the situation. So I think this is a pretty effective approach. Just compiling everybody's thoughts and ideas in a GIS map.
Oh, there's John again.
Yeah, get me started. I was just thinking with respect to getting more attention, if need be, with respect to a newspaper article or anything else, and I may be idiosyncratic about this, but it seems to me that if there are examples that, as it were, have romance, ancient constructions on the island, even literally ancient constructions on the island that existed that were created and now may be hidden or moribund, to deal with these issues, that might be, those sorts of things might be good hooks in a story to get attention about this. And they would also then serve as contrast to Jamie's state-of-the-art technology.
All right, anybody else have any concerns about this particular matter? Not seeing the hand up. Okay, what else we got on the agenda, Sherry? Anything else?
not really. Do we have any announcements of anything that's going on? I mentioned Kate's, and I will send that flyer out. So if everybody can please register and come have lunch, it'll be great.
Hopefully it'll be raining. Buckets. Snowing.
Is the registration, is it free or do we have to pay?
You register so that you get lunch.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to pay.
All right, thanks.
They're just registering to get a head count
Okay,
for how
perfect.
many are gonna come for lunch.
All right.
But yeah,
And the registration starts March 1st.
yes. It's a really interesting concept, so.
Mm.
Does anybody have any thing going on that they would like to share?
Anybody want to talk about the frozen ponds? Oh, I mean, lack of. I would imagine ice covering protects the ponds, right? Just like a snow covering protects everything. We don't get that.
Yeah,
Well-
the big worry with not a hard freeze is that the microbes are more active, or the algae is more active. So anytime the ice is out quickly, usually it's a short season for cyanobacteria.
Hmm.
Or it's
We'll have to look for that.
it's a long season. I'm sorry. It's short time. Cyanobacteria you usually see at the end of the summer, but when it's more temperate, the winters are more temperate. That happens earlier.
It's also
Yeah.
bad for ticks if we
I
don't
was gonna
get,
say
Yes.
ticks, yeah.
they're very happy because they don't.
They don't die.
Yeah.
Is anyone aware, in fact, speaking of the ticks, of studies that have been done that look into ecological constraints on ticks? For example, temperatures both low and high. I mean, have people done experiments on this? Because I mean, it's sort of, it's something that I once heard about for a long time. You know, the
Mhm.
relationship between cold winters and freezes and heavy snow and so on. But I wonder whether it's really the case, given that the ticks may be in the duff layer and they're functionally insulated. They may in fact be insulated from the cold temperature by the snow above a duff layer. So I don't know whether Sam Telford or others working on ticks are getting into these fundamental constraints.
I spoke to Sam about ticks a few years ago, and he said that they're just going to keep going north as it gets warmer and warmer, and that eventually they're going to be sort of north of us. So I guess that's kind of encouraging for
I
us.
think they've already moved north. When I go to my daughter's house, which is right on the border of New Hampshire, I'm more likely to get a tick there than I am here.
And that, I guess the fact that they
devastating.
weren't north before implies that there is a thermal constraint. You know, that the fact of the cold would inhibit their having increased their range in the past when it was colder. So,
Well, they're absolutely devastating northern Maine and the moose population.
Oh, geez.
Major heartbreaking die-offs
Oh,
because of the moose tick.
that's terrible. That's too bad. I got a thought. I heard something recently about there's more PFAS in freshwater fish that people catch than any other animal that people eat. And my concern is oysters in the ponds, or any kind of shellfish in the ponds. Has anybody done any testing of shellfish for PFAS? Especially oysters, that supposedly that's what their life is, filtering the water.
So, hi, I'm Nina, working with the Shellfish Group now. I will bring this question to Emma, and I'll have her email the group.
That'd be great. Yeah, I keep forgetting to email her. I was going to ask her about it too,
Yeah,
because I
Really?
love my oysters, but on the other hand,
I'll have her get back to you.
Yeah, there
Great.
was a study done a few years ago with Center for Coastal Studies. We put out collectors in the water column, and they actually collected some oysters, and they looked in the flesh of the oyster, and they looked in the water collectors. Eggertown, Great Pond, and Lagoon were done. I think there was one more, but they were looking for contaminants of emerging concern. That PFAS wasn't big news then. But they did find in the actual oysters, different sensor filter feeders, that they do have caffeine, they have acetaminophen. So chances are pretty good that it's in there.
yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
It's probably good for all those oyster farmers in Eggertown now that the beach is broken open and that thing is flushing so well now.
Yeah. I was looking at Katama Bay, that the water quality for it, and the nitrogen was slowly starting to creep up when the breach was closed. So I'm sure this year it's going to be wide open again, and the nitrogen won't be any kind of an issue there.
Yeah.
So the contaminants are flushed better too. We are looking at oysters a little bit and for cyanobacteria. But we're still, it's a preliminary look-see on that.
Well, it's interesting. Maybe 1 out of 6 oysters that I open has a shell, something going on with the shell that I go to put my knife in and the shell immediately breaks. And it's all these little holes in the shell. The oyster itself doesn't seem to be affected. It tastes just the same as the other ones. Hasn't killed me yet. But the shells are definitely an issue. And for commercial people, if they can't serve that to the customer, they got to toss that away, toss that out.
Right. It could be the drills. And yeah, changing climate is really messing with their shells.
Yeah.
Ocean acidification. The more CO2 the ocean absorbs, that the shell is calcium carbonate. So it interferes with the formation of that shell. So that's the thing with ocean acidification. It's going to like dissolve all the shellfish, right? And the coral and the,
Solve it.
well,
Thanks.
Jeez.
Okay, now we need some happy news.
yeah.
All the coral and shellfish are gonna dissolve. Lobsters dissolve.
Let's see, what can we eat?
Did,
Still be a problem.
yeah, did you, I'm sorry, I missed part of the meeting. I had to take a phone call, but did, Nina, did you introduce yourself and say what you're doing for Shellfish Group? I'm sorry to put you on that.
No, I didn't. Thank you. My name is Nina Ferry Montanil, and I'm the new Outreach and Education Manager for the Shellfish Group. So I came on board in December, and we've already made a lot of plans to get into the schools this spring, which is really exciting. We're going to be at some festivals. We're at the museum. So, you know, we're basically looking at everything we've always done since the late 70s, and just getting it out into the public more. So I'm really, really excited to be part of the Shellfish Group and to be working with all of you and to get to know you more.
It's good to have you on board.
Thank you.
You have
Welcome.
a great boss.
Yes. I certainly do.
I'm
And she
happy.
popped in. She said that we have not yet done any testing for PFAS in oysters. There she is.
There she is.
But it is something that we do want to do. Just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, okay. I probably
And
don't
not
wanna-
sure what to do with the results once you find them. Because Richard, I think it was on the series on WBUR that you maybe
Yeah.
heard that from with
Yep.
the freshwater fish.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, so I heard that too. So I think they're in everything that we consume.
Yeah. Yep. Crazy. Okay, anybody else have any thoughts?
Happy thoughts?
Happy thoughts. There we go. We're getting closer to spring all the time. That's a happy thought. Right?
That is a good one.
The water's warmer, so I guess, I don't know, is the water warmer? That's a question I have for everybody. You should know the answer. Somebody should know the answer to this question. Did it not cool down as much as usual?
I think we've had some really good freezes, so it's been. And when we had the really good freeze, it started to freeze over. So I think that we've gotten down there pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm just afraid we're gonna have those, blizzards again in March.
Yeah. We are so overdue. So
Yeah.
overdue for something.
The rest of the United States won't get anything, we'll get it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think on the one hand, it'll be good because maybe people won't think this is such a great place to have a house, or, there won't be so much building going on. Oh no, I lost my house. It fell into the ocean. Oh, isn't that too bad?
Not gonna happen, Richard.
No.
Play up the tick story.
That doesn't seem to work. How about the coyote story? Can you believe the turnout for that talk on coyotes? Holy smokes, it was standing room only. What do we got? 2, 3? Woo, my gosh.
Oh, someone told me we had 6 to 8, but we weren't sure if we had mating pairs. So did you actually go to the meeting?
I
What
didn't
did-
go to it. I just read the article and saw the picture of all the people.
Hmm.
I thought it was fascinating. I don't have a dog. I don't have a pet, so I'm not. I don't have any little kids, so I'm. I guess I'm not worried. But they could get me on my bike, I suppose. Yeah, they're really hungry. All right, I guess we can call it a day then, right? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you.
That was wonderful. It's nice to have a little update.
Yeah, thanks for the ideas too. I think we
Yeah.
got a pretty good idea.
Oh, you can work here forever.
Yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be great. All right.
For being
Goodbye,
a little-
everybody.
Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jamie.
Yep, thank you.
Oh, Sherry, will you let us know how to be in touch with Jamie? Or should I send information to you about Seth's Pond, the suggestion?
If we have some time, I'll try to take him for a ride up there.
Yep.
But, I will give you his information.
Great. Okay.
Okay,
Happy to meet you there.
great. Okay. Yeah, he's only here today and then tomorrow morning, so I don't know what his schedule is. We have one more meeting this afternoon and I don't know what else he has to do.
Okay.
So, yeah, are you pretty available?
Yeah, and I'm just around the corner at Old House,
Okay.
which briefly froze over, by the way, one evening, just one night, a glaze, and then it melted out later the next day.
Oh, okay, great. Let me just stop the recording.